In March 2025, the leader of Bangladesh flew to Beijing. Not New Delhi. Beijing. That single decision, breaking a diplomatic pattern that had held for decades, set off alarm bells across South Asia. Because Bangladesh is not just any country. It shares more than 4,000 kilometers of border with India. It sits where China's Belt and Road meets India's strategic backyard. And now, after Bangladesh's first post-Hasina election, the question is no longer whether Beijing gained influence. The question is whether India can offer an alternative before Chinese-built infrastructure becomes Bangladesh's dependency.
Bangladesh is one of the most strategically misunderstood countries on Earth. Most people think of it as a garment factory, and that is partly true. Ready-made garments generate more than 80% of the country's export earnings. Last fiscal year, the sector shipped about $39 billion in apparel. But the real story is geography. Bangladesh is almost entirely surrounded by India. More than 4,000 kilometers of shared border. The only open direction is south, into the Bay of Bengal. That coastline is why the country matters. Because if Bangladesh controls access to the bay, and China helps build the ports on that coastline, then India's backyard becomes a contested corridor. Bangladesh is not landlocked. But strategically, it is boxed in. And that makes it powerful.
In August 2024, a student-led uprising brought down Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. She fled to India, literally. That one fact poisoned the relationship. Hasina had kept Bangladesh closely aligned with New Delhi for years. Her successor, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, made a very different choice. His first bilateral state visit was not to India. It was to China. He came back with $2.1 billion in Chinese investments, loans, and grants. And he opened the door for Beijing in a project India had been negotiating for more than a decade. A project it never finalized. The Teesta River.
The Teesta is a cross-border river flowing from India into northern Bangladesh. For years, Dhaka had been asking New Delhi for a water-sharing deal. India never finalized it, partly because of domestic politics in West Bengal. So Yunus went to Beijing. He called China a master of water management, a line that landed like a grenade in New Delhi. Bangladesh asked China for a 50-year master plan, river management, embankments, restoration, and long-term water infrastructure. To India, this is not just irrigation. It is Chinese influence moving closer to the Siliguri Corridor, the narrow strip of land that links mainland India to its northeastern states.
But the Teesta is only one piece. Look at a map of China's infrastructure across the Indian Ocean. Gwadar in Pakistan, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Kyakpu in Myanmar, and now Mongla in Bangladesh. China has committed $400 million to modernize Mongla Port. Beijing says these are commercial projects. Indian strategists worry about something else. What happens if commercial ports become strategic access points later? Chinese-backed commitments and investment in Bangladesh now run into the tens of billions of dollars. Chinese firms have built roads, bridges, and energy projects across the country. India can offer partnership, history, and geography. China is offering infrastructure at scale.
So what does this mean in practice? 3 consequences that do not make most headlines, but should. First, the chicken's neck. The Siliguri Corridor is only about 20 to 25 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. It is the narrow land bridge that connects India to its northeastern states. Bangladesh cannot close that corridor. It is Indian territory. But if Bangladesh becomes hostile, or if transit through Bangladesh becomes restricted during a crisis, India loses its easiest alternative routes, and the pressure on Siliguri becomes enormous. That is why Yunus's comment in Beijing mattered. He described India's northeastern states as landlocked, and Bangladesh as their guardian of ocean access. India's reaction was furious, because the geography is sensitive. Second, the Ganga Water Treaty expires in December 2026. Renewal is uncertain, and water politics touches millions of people. Third, India's neighborhood first policy is under visible stress. Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and now Bangladesh all have tested deeper ties with China. When a neighborhood strategy struggles inside the neighborhood, that is not just a diplomatic problem. It is a strategic warning.
The signal changed in 2026. Bangladesh's election is no longer a future event. It happened on February 12th, and the Bangladesh Nationalist Party won a decisive mandate. That matters, because China's bet was never only on one leader. Beijing does not just bet on personalities. It bets on infrastructure. Roads, ports, power plants, and river projects do not disappear when governments change. And by May 2026, China was already pledging support for Bangladesh's new government. This is where geopolitics becomes money. Bangladesh's garment sector generates more than 80% of export earnings. It employs millions of workers and supplies Western retailers. But growth has slowed. Inflation remains painful, and the central bank has had to announce a roughly $4.9 billion stimulus. So Bangladesh needs stability, buyers, energy, credit, and foreign capital. India is offering partnership. China is offering infrastructure and financing. For a country of roughly 175 million people, that difference is not abstract. It hits jobs, currency pressure, clothing exports, and household prices.
Bangladesh is not simply choosing China over India. It is doing what smaller nations often do between larger powers. It is extracting leverage from rivalry. The port China helps finance. The river project India failed to deliver. The trade access Bangladesh controls. And the geography India cannot ignore. Dhaka is using all of it. The question is not whether Bangladesh has already fallen to China. That is too simple. The real question is whether India can build a compelling alternative fast enough before Chinese-backed infrastructure becomes dependency. Because once the loans mature, once the ports expand, once water infrastructure is built, the balance of leverage changes. India knows this. China knows this. And now, after Bangladesh's political reset, what happens in Dhaka may become one of the most important power and money stories in Asia. Almost no one in the West is watching closely enough. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe to Covert Economics. We cover the money, the power, and the systems that actually drive global events. The link to our weekly briefing is in the description. And tell me in the comments, is Bangladesh making a smart strategic move? Or building a dependency it may not be able to escape? I read every response.